The average Nigerian doesn't have the necessary awareness to want to go to the hospital. It's almost like a last resort. So I think more education has to be done on this particular aspect, whereby people like the age of my mom and my aunties and uncles should see the need to go to the hospital on a regular basis to get to do checkups and all that. But when the hospitals are underfunded, when there's no subsidy really covering the people as it gets to as it's supposed to be, you find it very difficult. And as I pointed out before, the facilities are not really there for the average Nigerian. The hospitals are so very far. I can just imagine at the moment in Cross River, there's Monaya at one hand, there's Charles Luanga in Obudu, Monaya is in Ogoja, the General Hospital is in Ogoja, then the teaching hospital is in Calabar. Then there's the Holy Family, and then that's almost in and about the major hospitals in a complete state. And it's really a thing to be looked at, and it's a thing that has not really been looked at by the government and its people. And the average Nigerian dies most times not even knowing the cause of his or her death. And when not dead, have a very poor knowledge of his or her health history. My name is Biringkpa, and I'm a Nigerian.
How would you describe the current state of healthcare in Nigeria?
The current state of healthcare in Nigeria, my country, is very, very disturbing because a whole lot of persons get to die on a daily basis without the government really doing enough. At the moment, we are over 220 million people in Nigeria, and the current situation in the country is so bad that we don't have enough facilities to cater to the well-being and the health of the people in the country. And we've had a serious exodus of doctors, nurses, and healthcare givers, as well as people from other professions who are fleeing the country because of the economic hardship in the country. They are fleeing to places of better climes. So at the moment, those in the rural areas cannot really afford healthcare services. And even in the Federal Capital Territory, there seem to still be a problem. For instance, my grandfather died in Nigeria at the time when the healthcare workers, the doctors particularly, were on strike. This is the national hospital in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. So if this could be in Abuja, just imagine those in rural areas, those in places where they have still not gotten light up until now. So the situation is terrible. The government is not doing enough. It can do better. In the 21st century, in 2024, we are not where we are supposed to be. We're not even near where we're supposed to be. A whole lot of persons get to be diagnosed of sicknesses sometimes that shouldn't ordinarily be their diagnosis, but because of the lack of manpower and all that, this gets to take the lead. But it doesn't go without me saying that the doctors and nurses in the country, those who actually want to work, are actually doing their very best because they are working within very limited resources. And if they have these infrastructures put in place, the healthcare system in my country, as well as other sectors, can really come out to be very better.
What are the biggest challenges facing the Nigerian healthcare system?
The biggest challenge, the biggest challenge is facing the healthcare system in my country. The number one is underfunding. The sector is underfunded due to large-scale corruption and a whole lot. The doctors are not given incentives to stay back. The nurses also are not given the necessary incentive for them to get to stay back in the country. So they get to leave the country for greener pastures. You cannot entirely blame them because they spend a whole lot of time in school studying a whole lot and then coming out to a system that has ordinarily failed them greatly, and they go abroad and then they flourish, and it's something they ordinarily should have done back home. So there is a drain of manpower on the one hand, then there's underfunding on the other hand, and then there's also a lack of initiative and thinking process done by our leaders. The leadership has not really led them in. The leadership structure has not really been so wonderful. So we're starved of role models and leaders back in Nigeria, and it's a thing that can be improved upon, and it's a thing that we should improve upon. But up until now, we are not doing so.
How accessible is quality healthcare for the average Nigerian?
The average Nigerian doesn't have the necessary awareness to want to go to the hospital. It's almost like a last resort. So I think more education has to be done on this particular aspect, whereby people like the age of my mom and my aunties and uncles should see the need to go to the hospital on a regular basis to get to do checkups and all that. But when the hospitals are underfunded, when there's no subsidy really covering the people as it's supposed to be, you find it very difficult. And as I pointed out before, the facilities are not really there for the average Nigerian. The hospitals are so very far. I can just imagine at the moment in Cross River, there's Monaya at one hand, there's Charles Luanga in Obudu, Monaya is in Ogoja, the General Hospital is in Ogoja, then the teaching hospital is in Calabar, then there's the Holy Family, and then that's almost in and about the major hospitals in a complete state. And it's really a thing to be looked at, and it's a thing that has not really been looked at by the government and its people. And the average Nigerian dies most times not even knowing the cause of his or her death, and when not dead, have a very poor knowledge of his or her health history for the time and duration of such a person being alive.
What improvements would you like to see in Nigeria's healthcare sector?
I want to see the leaders of the country rise up to the call of leadership and the duties their offices bestow upon them. I want to see serious people getting to think about the problems of the country, just like how we discovered penicillin. The leaders should be able to fund research centers, should be able to look at a whole lot of things that should be looked at. You should be able to look at, these are the peculiar cases we have back home. What are the pharmaceutical concerns that we have to look at? What are the research concerns we have to look at? Because these are our problems. We cannot continue to look up to the West and, the Asian world to get to supply our needs. We have to do that ourselves. And if we don't do that, we labor in vain. If we don't do that, we get to crumble. So leadership first on the aspect of our leaders, but then also leadership and discipline on our own side. We as citizens of the country have to also clamor and cry for the need to, get policies that will allow the private sector get to come into play, because without the private sector, we cannot really function as a people. So the private sector has to come into play, and then there should be an enabling environment for the private sector to get to flourish very well. But key is corruption has to go away, and people's life have to be treated seriously.
How would you rate the quality of education in Nigeria today?
The quality of education in Nigeria, on a general scale, the percentage it's quite low compared to where the world is today. The youth back home is struggling to survive. Not just the youth, our fathers and mothers, our brothers and sisters, aunties, nephews, cousins, and all that are struggling first to survive. So that in a society where you've taken a source of livelihood away from the people and made life so difficult, the passion to want to really have serious sense of education would drastically drop, and that's what we've had in the country. It's alarming, it's disturbing, especially up north. Our youths don't want to go through the rigor of education, and they have been sold the whole idea that school is a scam. But school is not a scam, because school indeed is important. It enlightens, it gives people the brains and the minds to think. Take, for instance, if you were to go by the whole idea that school is a scam, people think school is a scam because they equate going to school and making money and earning, because that's not the case. If you want to really make money, you go into business. If you want to be enlightened and educated, you go to school. And the businessman needs an accountant who is educated to manage his empire. He needs auditors, he needs a whole lot of people around his table who are actually educated, so that that particular argument of education is a scam is a thing to be squashed and thrown away.
What are the main issues affecting the education system in Nigeria?
Poverty. And why I say poverty as a point to start from is because it has come to affect a whole lot of things. Poverty has come to affect the quality of life of students, and poverty of the mind also have also seen to that our leaders are not really doing what they are supposed to do. So there's a large scale level of corruption and illegalities going on in our higher institutions, and the whole idea of also of irresponsibility, because you find parents who want to see to it that their kids get to skip school. You find parents who want to take their kids to schools that just want to give them good grades and the likes of that. But also you find parents who are striving to do their very best, but because of the situation where they find themselves, it becomes a problem. Take, for instance, in most Nigerian universities, it is no longer meat. We hear cases of lecturers wanting to have affairs with female students, and now by extension male students also, for grade, sex for grade, and not just sex for grade. You have to pay a certain amount of money through certain cost reps and all that for things to go well. So there's large scale corruption, so that a lecturer doesn't deliver on a job he has been paid to do, because I consider a lecturer as a serviceman who, through school fees and through other scholarships, and his salary has been mandated to teach students. But he doesn't deliver on his services and then demands extra money from the students to claim that he has delivered on his service, so he could just give them a pass mark. So that from here you get to see that the educational system continues to decay. This is the first place citizens are beginning to learn corruption, so that most persons don't get to believe in the educational sector. But there are many persons out there still doing great and wonderful.
How can the government improve the quality of education in Nigeria?
It still goes back to leadership. It still goes back to this particular place. It still goes back to fixing the societal problems. Amenities should be provided. Money allocated to such places should be provided. Students should be told that it is not how well furnished their classes are that would ordinarily translate to them coming to knowledge. But students should also be told that education is not easy. Reading a book and understanding it and trying to apply it in real life is not easy. It takes time. And the enabling environment should be made for students to study. Those who want to study overnight, those who want to study beyond the normal way should be in place, so that if a society gets to function, if Nigeria gets to function, their functional roads, their infrastructures, from buildings, from a structure that sees to it that the economy gets to function very well, and a whole lot of other things, students will study. So for me, the number one priority and the number one thing for the government to do is to see to it that the basics are met. And the basics here mean fixing the politics and the policies in the country.
What role do you think technology can play in enhancing education in Nigeria?
It is one of the most important things we as a people have to embrace fully and also with caution as to how we go about it. One of the ways technology can harness education as it is already doing in the West is the digitalization of course materials for students. Because this is where also our lecturers back home get to embezzle funds and get to do a whole lot of things. So they make it compulsory that until you buy a handout and until you get this handout from them and until you get to use it, you're not going to pass an exam. So they get to make photocopies of mostly plagiarized works from the internet and from other sources, photocopy them and then make it compulsory for students to get to buy. A thing that has to stop, a thing that each time I get to hear about it, I cringe because I, as a person, have had access to a great chunk of materials in this short period of my life. And I must say, while I was still in Nigeria, it was quite challenging because of the exchange rate. But now it's even much more easier because all the institutions I'm affiliated to, be it the national libraries of the countries I get to have a pass to get to visit, and the institutions I'm affiliated by way of research and by way of studies, have access to a whole lot of things like JSTOR, things like ResearchGate, things like these sites that actually make studies and research very simple, a thing that is still lacking back home. So technology will play a great role if access to internet is given to students to watch great chunk of lectures and course modules on the internet and get to master classes and get to recordings and get to archives most likely these days digitalized. And also the internet is a very, very important factor also, and how accessible it gets to the people. Because most likely, if you meet a Nigerian today, they still think about the internet in terms of gigs and in terms of megabytes because they get to buy in this particular way. So technology has not really been harnessed back home enough. So unlike we down here in the West, we don't get to think about internet the way they get to think about back home, and it's also something that has to really be worked on seriously and squarely. Another way also technology can be harnessed, it's in the aspect of making life easy, search engines and stuff like this also will get to harness this. Technology can also be harnessed from the aspect of coping corruption in terms of how students get to pay their fees and what is done with that, and also university administrators responding and replying to mails on time, because it's a thing Nigerians are not used to, their emails. And not just that, the universities don't respond to emails. It's a problem. If you need a transcript, the chances that you're going to get the transcript within the deadline your university you are applying to abroad is giving you is very, very slim. And then recently I read that they made billions of naira from transcript requests. To request a transcript in Nigeria, you get to pay heavily for it. And the process is not clean. Corruption gets to come in, and it's also a problem. So technology can go a long way from what we've pointed out, getting documents digitalized, following the guidelines not to break plagiarism and or copyright guidelines and all, both international copyright and all that. And it's a thing we're still very, very much behind. It will surprise you to know that the National Library in my country has taken almost all through my existence as a human being, and it has not seen the light of day. I know I have a younger sister who is 18, and I think that library was conceived long before she was born, or long before my parents met and brought her into the world. And The library is far from finished, and nobody is concerned. So this is one of the problems we have back home. But we go for parties and we eat and we drink. We forget the most important thing, the building of the human mind.
How prevalent is corruption in Nigeria, and how does it affect daily life?
Corruption in Nigeria, as well as all parts of the world on different scales, is a thing that we cannot really evade. But it's prevalent in Nigeria, and you get to see it on the streets of Agbo and on the streets of Lekki and Shagamu and Manfi and Pape. And these places like this is because the leaders get to, snatch it, grab it, and cut away with it. The corruption in my country, as much as corruption is in all parts of the world, it's very alarming. Corruption has become the norm. It's like how people breathe now. Without it, almost nobody gets to really function. There's this tweet that circulated online at a particular point, being alleged to have been said by the Afrofusion artist Burna Boy. He said, at the moment in Nigeria, it is either you are criminally rich or satanically poor, so that you can barely survive in Nigeria at almost any point in your life without having to deal with either yourself or to somebody who has a tie or a link with a corrupt practice or with a corrupt case somewhere. So you as a business person, you as a Christian, you as a virtuous person, you can barely function in such a nation as it is almost across the globe. But it's very visible. The leaders are not doing anything. They are so arrogant about it. They don't care. They don't really look at the people. They don't really look at the subject. They don't really look at the things they ordinarily should be looking at. These guys don't really care. They don't look at the repercussions of what they get to do as a people. They don't really think. They don't really think very well. And I ask myself, for how long are they going to continue stealing? So it has become a familiar case. It has become a case of, I know this person and this person knows this person and this person knows this person. And before you count 10 persons you already know as an individual, you should have counted like 5 persons or 7 persons out of that have a hand or two in a form of corrupt practice or the other, either on large scale or on a very small scale.
What measures do you think could effectively combat corruption in Nigeria?
One of the ways is to be law-abiding citizens, and by that is to follow the constitutions of the constitution of our country. Our constitution, by default, is anti-people. Our constitution was not written with the people at heart or in mind, as we've come to see over the years. Its constitution is almost 30 years old, and it speaks the devil. It smells a lot. It's our constitution, but it needs constant checking. It's something it has not gotten in recent times. But then moving forward, talking about law, being law abiding and all that, we as a people have to begin to tell ourselves the truth, that if we continue to loot and loot and loot, we're heading nowhere as a people. It reminds me of the poem Decay wrote and presented also. It's called The Road.
If I had enough money to buy any car, no sloppy jalopina, straight tear rubber, fit it with sat-nav, TV in the back, a banging sound system, fog lights in the dark. It would sound like thunder, run like a cheetah. If my pocket could bear it, I'll buy me a Hummer. complete with push start and those spinning rims. If God would just bless me with the car of my dreams. Okay, have the car, but where will you go? Should he also come and fix the road too? Fill the potholes and chase the armed robber that's waiting to rob you at Lokoja? Wait. Should he also come and rewire your brain so you can stop driving as if you're insane? Expand that road from Lac to Benin so you can enjoy the Lamborghini you're in? Should he build a hospital at Tungan Maji and man an emergency response unit at Kuje so you don't have to die or be flown to India when you tumble your car on the road to Kaduna? Should he also come and be the government and ensure that public funds are well spent? Take care of those things that are nobody's own so you can enjoy the things that you own? Haba. Prayer on prayer, Bobs, you know go tire. God take me, please take me, God take me higher. Higher to where? When the fastest car must still join the hold up at Gwagwalada. Don't put it on God and don't blame the devil. You just can't escape the fate of your people. When there's no one to care for the common good, that car is quite useless, for there is no road.
In that poem, he talked about, the whole idea of getting a very, very expensive car, trying to speed across roads that are not good, and you thinking if you do that and you get an accident, there will be an emergency unit very, very next door at Tunjemaji to get to see to it that you get saved and the likes of that. It's not going to happen. The country is so bad that everybody is stealing, or most persons are stealing, but then there's nothing for the common man. Everybody is thinking, oh, I'm guarding what is mine. What is mine is mine. What is ours is ours. But then who takes care of what is ours is what decay is trying to ask us in that particular poem. Everybody is trying to hold on to their self, themselves, but they're not looking at the next person, the next group, the next thing. So the system collapses while people try to hold on to themselves. We have to come together and tell ourselves that if the country must be good and there will be security of lives and properties and the future for our children and the generation to come, that we must begin to do things as humans. We must begin to look at ourselves as a collective. We must begin to look at ourselves as family members. Because I always ask this question to myself and to people. Imagine you now, your family having a financial crisis and the family's business is about to go down. What do? Do they close down the business? No. If they have a means of getting money, lending money, they get to lend money from a bank and get to see that they want to try to revive the system. But what happens in Nigeria, and the irony about it is that these people lend money and use the money to fund their expensive lifestyle, as opposed to the real reasons why funds are borrowed and the likes of that. So I think it's the level of we being not patriotic enough that gets to see to it that we are where we are. So tribalism and the tribe has taken the forefront, and people are thinking within their own sphere. A writer I respect so much in Nigeria, Chemeze Chika, wrote a piece a few weeks ago about the idea of a detribalized Nigerian. And he speaks to the question, the Nigerian that doesn't care if his brother or sister is the one in office or in power, provided that the person in that particular place is a Nigerian and merits the office, and it's there to he or she is there actually to carry out his or her duties. That is all what we need. We need detribalized Nigerians. We need Nigerians who think and want well for Nigerians. We need nationalists without the extremism that comes with nationalism.
How do you feel about the current state of infrastructure in Nigeria?
Each time I think about Nigeria, I feel sad. I feel sad that a nation that was supposed to be in competition or in close proximity with war powers in our modern times have failed to live up to the expectation people projected on it because of because of because of lack of a whole lot of things. So that infrastructure has been the thing, the near. It's been far off. It's been there. It's been a thing talked about over and over. But corruption in Nigeria, corruption in Nigeria is as old as Okotibo. It's as old as Awolowo. It's as old as the Sadwana of Sokoto. It's as old as these things, and even predates their own existence in the affairs of the national politics and the policies that have come to see to it that Nigeria has become what it is. So that at the moment we cannot provide running water for people. People are busy drilling boreholes almost everywhere in Nigeria. Overhead tanks are everywhere. The roads are not functioning. The roads take more lives now than it actually takes people to their destination. So it takes them to their final end and maims them and breaks them more than what ordinarily should be. And it is not a thing we should be very proud of. There are no roads. The trains are not working as fast as they should. That is why people are beginning to build on railway. Can you imagine? People in my country build on railway tracks because they have waited for the trains to come for years and they are not coming. So they say, okay, in a whole Nigerian anyhowness, let us build on these railways and let us see what happens. So that we have a long way to go. Schools must be built, roads linking hospitals and police stations and marketplaces and farmlands and rural areas and urban areas and townships have to be connected and linked to each other. A thing we have not been able to do now. A thing that I think we must do and we should do if we must see our country catch up with the world, because the world has left us far behind, like 80 years ago.
What infrastructure projects do you think are most urgently needed?
Nigeria needs all the infrastructures a modern society needs. We need roads. We need railway tracks. We need pipe-borne water, not just pipe-borne water, we need running water. We need health security. We need insurance to our life. We need security as a people, a thing we don't have at the moment. We need to boost our agricultural system. We need machineries to do our work so we don't get to spend 7 years doing something we can do in a year. We need technology to get to boost a whole lot. We need good men and women. We need to harness our resources. Like I said earlier in the course of this interview, we are over 220 million people, because census also is a problem in Nigeria. We don't really know how many we are in that country. So we need all of this, and we need them fast. And we don't have the patience enough again, because we're dying continually. We need to reduce stress. We need to reduce the way we do things. We need to improve the way we build houses, and we need to cut down on our level of poor quality buildings and developments and the likes of that. We need to start afresh. We need to understand ourselves and our problems. We as Nigerians must talk to ourselves. we as Nigerians must stand strong and stand tall if we indeed really want to make sense of our life here. A thing we're not doing, a thing that makes people leave the country en masse, a thing that make people die so early, so fast. The hospitals failed my dad. The hospitals failed my grandfather. And they failed a whole lot of other persons out there. Thanks to the poor level of infrastructures we have in the country, thanks to the poor roads, thanks to the poor sense of livelihood and a whole lot of things. So that I joined decay to say Nigeria provokes the believer in me.
Can you people help me ask this man? How does who he is affect the price of our gege bread? Give me light. No way. Give me water. No way. Give me education. No way. Give me health. No way. I've done the contract. Pay me my money. No way. And on top of that, you still want me to bow to you? Haba. Is it juju? Honestly, if we have all been sitting down in this room, if you are the reason this meeting did not start on time, we have all been here waiting for you to arrive. When you finally arrive, are you not supposed to arrive with begging? Please, I'm so sorry for keeping you all waiting. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. Is that not how a human being is supposed to arrive? Instead, when you finally saunter in, 2.5 hours after the meeting was supposed to start, with your entourage, still, we're all supposed to rise majestically to our feet and begin to applaud because you call yourself a principality. On top of the poverty and unemployment your incompetence in office is inflicting on us, we're still supposed to carry your bag, open your gate, call your oga, call you madam. Haba! Is it juju? Rubbish and nonsense. See, this country provokes the believer in me. And I stand here to accuse all of us of idolatry. But the deities we worship in vain for protection and healing are not juju figures hidden in the floorboard and ceiling. Tell me, what do you call a ministry of health that has no hospitals? Or a minister of education that provides no schools? Or His Excellency the governor that cannot pay salaries? Or a powerful police force that catches no thieves? Tell me, what do you call a ministry of housing that bestows no housing? Or a ministry of works when nothing is working? Or a strong man whose people, though homeless and jobless, still come out each time to vote him en masse? See, this country provokes the believer in me. And I stand here to accuse us of idolatry. But the deities we worship in vain for protection and healing are not juju figures hidden in the floorboard and ceiling. Tell me, what do you call a people who sing the praises of leaders in a country of broken roads, no light and armed robbers? Or a young man who gives his blood campaigning for a politician who will not even let him know when CBN is employing? When the road to the farm, to the home grows thinner, but the people in charge grow fresher and fatter, but the man oppressed is still first in line to welcome the oppressor when he rolls into town. See, this country provokes the believer in me, and I stand here to accuse us of idolatry. But the deities we worship in vain for protection and healing are not juju figures hidden in the floorboard and ceiling. No. We carry their bags. We open their gates. We swerve to one side so they pass on the roads. We call them madam. We call them oga. We fall to the ground and hail them baba. We laugh at their jokes. We follow their drama. We quickly forgive them for no light and water. We transfer their funds. We carry their guns. Our idols are human. We know all their names. So, to the kings and queens of the garbage dump, to strong men of states without roads or hospitals, to leaders who flex while a nation is dying, I've come to announce me. I'm tired of kneeling. For a God of thunder that cannot thunder, and a ministry of power that gives no power, no matter how you may want me to phrase this, they both belong to the category of the useless, because them get eye, but them no they see. Them get ear, but them no they hear. Them get the hand, but them no they walk. Cha cha, see them mouth oh. Now so talk. Man-made gods, man-made gods, man-made gods. Man, I will never worship. Never worship. I beg, carry your own bag. Open your own gates. Why can't you fly economy? Why can't you join the queue like me? I will never worship. Never worship. I will never worship. See, I say this country provokes the believer in me. And I stand here to renounce this idolatry of bowing to empty ogas and madams who do not have eyes or ears to hear us, to fear. From today, I save my worship for those who work hard to ensure our women don't die in childbirth, to see that the gas in the ground finds its way to turbines that turn to bring power to our people's homes. I save my worship for those leaders who care that our children go to school and their teachers are there, that hospitals have drugs and our people have jobs. From today, I save my worship for those leaders who serve. Never worship. I beg, carry your own bag.
Sometimes I just break down in tears and ask myself, for how long? For how long are leaders going to do this to us? For how long are we going to sit by and watch our leaders do the things they do? Steal our money, cut away, and keep them in banks abroad. These banks get to use the money to loan the citizens of such countries, and such people get to use the money and then get to fund their lifestyles and get to improve their own places. And we continue to languish in pain. From the Abacha's loot to as many loots done by almost every other person, we get to see ourselves languishing. We've not even talked about the contribution Africans who leave the continent to European countries, to Western nations, to Asian nations, get to contribute to the GDP of such countries and the tax of such country. Things that should have ordinarily been for the people. Because what they go to look for abroad can actually be replicated and be provided in their people. So we have a phrase in Nigeria say, what you define for Shokoto, you dey for Shokoto. Shokoto being Nigeria, Sokoto being abroad in the name of Jakpa and all that. Most persons are not ready for the loneliness they get to face when they travel abroad. But because of, they cannot just find the basics in life, they travel. And not too long after you must have traveled, the whole euphoria for the beautiful buildings get to cease, and you face life, and you get to see tax, and you get to see bills come your way, and you get to see loneliness setting. Because you always be juggling that two stuff, home and abroad. So that Chinua Achebe will write a book called Home and Exile. We can do better. Our infrastructures can function, but it will not do so until we begin to ask and hold our leaders accountable and hold ourselves also accountable for lack of enlightenment and what it takes to really do that.
How does the state of infrastructure impact economic development in Nigeria?
The roads don't link to the farm. The produce from the farms don't get to the market on time. And there are no serious measures of preserving stuffs. Take, for instance, if you go to a place like Makurdi, Benue State was considered the food basket of the nation before the current insurgency and farmer header crisis, a thing also that shouldn't even be ongoing at the moment, but because of the laxity in government and how things are, we get to see that things also still continue to be the way they are. The schools are not well built, the hospitals are not well linked, the roads are not well connected. There's a disjoint in a whole lot of things. People build on lands that they were not supposed to build on. There's a problem with our think tanks in Nigeria. We have a problem with really sitting down and fixing our problems by ourselves so that we look for foreign people. We overbloat our contracts and we underperform and we underproduce, so that when the roads are not linking to the farms and the farms are not being linked to the markets or linked to places where they can get things at stable lights and get to preserve food. You have food, I believe in your room you should have food at the moment in your refrigerator, or fruits or something that you are sure, even if you live here today and go to Amsterdam, or you leave from here and go to London, in 2-3 days you're sure that when you come back they will still be there, and you will not have a power surge whereby your fridge will go bad and the likes of that. There are lots of stability you get to enjoy when you're here. And same thing also can be replicated back home. A friend of mine recently traveled to Turkey for the summer break, and for 2 weeks, I had to go take care of the pets in his house. And the refrigerator was on and stuff there didn't go bad. A thing like that cannot really be afforded back home because the lights are not there. The Ministry of Power have no power. The Ministry of Roads in Nigeria bestow no roads. The Minister of Health bestows no health on the people. The Minister of the Economy and all the parastatals joined there from budget and whatever bestows nothing on the people. So that when this disjoint continues and we don't get to link these things easily and get to harness a robust understanding and moral backbone, the country suffers. And it suffers economically and what have you. Nigeria produces crude oil. We don't have a functioning refinery. We had 4. They all went bad. We couldn't repair because we knew, or most persons knew, the benefit they would get if they supply crude abroad by way of transporting them through the high sea, get refined, and then they send products back to us. So that is what happens in Nigeria. Crude is being gotten, sent abroad, refined and blended, and then being sent back home. And also on the idea of monopoly, we are currently at the verge of getting a refinery in Nigeria, but the powers that be are struggling tooth and nail to see to it that it doesn't work. That's the Dangote refinery. You can argue about monopoly all you can, but the man has really tried. Whether his hands are clean or whether he has also contributed to the current issues in Nigeria is a thing for another day. But the fact is that the West are not going to just sit down and watch Nigeria, more so Africa, just succeed, because Africa, in many ways, feeds the world. So until Africa's infrastructural problems are sorted out, the country will continue to be dependent, because where the world is a place where Africa is not. Reasons we all know. Colonialism happened, neo-colonialism is happening, and morality has been shoved off because morality doesn't function in international politics. It's a whole scene for hypocrisy and all that. I wonder how they sleep at night. But I blame my African brothers and sisters, I blame our leaders for not really having the mindset and the brain to really think seriously to see to it that we get to function well, that we get to do the things we get to do, and we get to do them well. To see that we as a people get to be where we're supposed to be.
What are your thoughts on the security situation in Nigeria?
The security situation in Nigeria is bad. It's hinged on the fact I've pointed out before, poverty. There's a large scale poverty in my country. So when people are poor, they look for means of survival. I'm not talking about those people now who just naturally find pleasure in harming people, because there are no people, there's nobody naturally born to just find pleasure in harming people. Something ordinarily gets to happen in them to lead them towards such path. But I'm talking about at the current moment and at the state where my country is, insecurity is a problem, because the government have not been able to meet the daily needs of the people, and people have to be alive and people have to survive. And so people have turned to a whole lot of things just to stay alive, from kidnapping to banditry to stealing to defrauding people to being insincere to cheat people in business, to overbloat contracts, and to just be almost anything than what Nigerians are ordinarily supposed to be. Because Nigerians are loving people, Nigerians are good people, Nigerians are just people like everybody else in the world. And as we all know, desperate times bestow or bring about desperate measures. And most Nigerians turn to these things like the hookup phenomenon, things like the email scams and all that, as a resort to really help themselves. This is not me sitting down here to justify things. I'm not even a morality police to even start with. I'm just saying the level of insecurity in Nigeria stems from corruption. It stems from weaponizing poverty. And poverty has been weaponized so badly at the moment in my country that the security situation has not even started. From the north down to the south, there's problem. But the north currently are suffering more than ever before. They have highly been persecuted and been assaulted on many fronts. The whole idea of Boko Haram predominantly was a thing in the north, but the south have also seen the whole idea of unknown gunmen and insurgency down this other way. It will not take long if the current crop of politicians we have don't really look at the things they're supposed to look at before Nigeria heads towards anarchy and possibly doom. It's so close. It's so close. And we must do everything humanly possible to prevent that, else we crumble together and we perish together. A thing that I think don't really bother our politicians and our leaders. A thing that should give them sleepless night, but a thing that I doubt they think about.
How has insecurity affected communities and businesses in Nigeria?
You don't want to know. If you check the clips about the whole Boko Haram saga, if you check issues about the whole idea of the farmer headers crisis, if you check the East that used to be very peaceful, and see how increasingly security has been thrown away, you get to really understand what happens back home. For instance, Benue State, like I said before, was or is still considered the food basket of the nation. But there have been a crop of guys who've had cattle, who have refused to have ranches, because in Nigeria we think almost everything is impossible, whereby cows are not like in India where they are considered sacred. Nigerian, it won't be surprising to see cows in the Federal Capital Territory trekking on the highway and nothing happens. Nobody is concerned because it brings a whole lot of money, and there's a particular crop of people that get to decide those that get to be elected, and then you get to see to it that it doesn't really help. So what happened in Benue State? Guys from the north and from the central brought in their cattle by way of, this, let's get some piece of land and then let's get to do a couple of things. And then they're not claiming the land. They're now eating up crops. They're now doing a whole lot of nonsense, and they're now killing farmers who get to resist that their cattle get to feed upon the crops of the people. So that people have died in Benue State beyond imagination, beyond telling, and almost little or nothing is done to actually curb such situations and to curb such issues. And our leaders are not really thinking in the direction they ordinarily are supposed to be thinking. It's a concern. The North is currently under siege. The people are dying. The government and leaders don't really seem to care and really look at situations the way they ought to do. The military is still, to the best of my knowledge, underfunded, and then the corrupt practices that go down there also is a thing that really needs attention and needs close listening and close attention, so that Nigeria is heading nowhere if investors cannot get a security that their facilities will not be harmed, will not be looted, and will not be destroyed. Until we get to this particular level, we are doing ourselves no good. Until we get to the point whereby we educate our people and tell them, we are brothers and sisters, we shouldn't be harmed, we shouldn't be angry with ourselves, we shouldn't fight with ourselves, because we are all one. We are all one and the same. We are brothers and sisters, cut off from the same loin, brought forth from the same womb. We are heading nowhere. It is sad that a country that is looked to for direction and for help and for inspiration by most African countries can no longer be looked at and be appreciated for what it did during the days of ECOMOG, during the days of peacekeeping, during the days of the Liberia idea, during the days of supplying soldiers to go down to neighboring African countries to seek peace and see to it that the likes of South Africa gains independence, Rhodesia becomes Zimbabwe, Liberia gains its notion of freedom it's ordinarily supposed to have gained a long time ago. It is so sad that we've come down to this particular place. And so in the long run, what do we say? Fix the politics. Decay in his poem said it, until they are there in office, men and women with the heart for selfless service. No region, no religions, just commitment to build a functional nation that fills us all with pride. Until they are there in the highest office, men and women with the heart for selfless service. No tongue, no tribe, just commitment to nation. Until we elect them, we labor in vain. Until we stop electing politicians in office with minds in London, perpetual latecomers to every meeting, irritated by anyone with a different opinion, we'll see the people as a throne to sit on. Until we stop electing politicians in high office with low mentality. Until we stop electing politicians who set up committees and publish white papers, presiding over affairs that never improve. Until we stop getting guys who just think about themselves, we labor in vain. Until we ourselves begin to hold ourselves accountable and responsible for the problems that is the current realities in our country, Nigeria, we labor in vain until we begin to tell ourselves that we have to take politics seriously. It's not a new thing if you get to hear from Nigerians who get to tell you, they don't read the news, they don't care about politics, they don't do anything. Theirs is just a thing about they just want to live their life happily. But I ask myself, is there anything in the world that currently doesn't have an undertone of politics? Life itself is politics because if I was to go by the whole idea of man living in a polis, politics has already started its game, and it's a thing everybody should get involved in. Nobody should be left out. We all must stand together, stand strong, listen to ourselves, or we fall all apart. And funny enough, things are falling apart way, way, way back. But what do we tell ourselves? Do we resign our faith and tell ourselves, oh, Nigeria is doomed, Nigeria is gone, Nigeria is no more, just to feel happy? Nigerians have to make Nigeria great. It starts with you, it starts with me, it starts with your country and the agency you get to work for. And it starts with conversations like this. It starts with little talks. It starts with action being taken to curb corruption. It starts with poverty being addressed and being treated the way it ordinarily is supposed to be treated. It starts with us, my people. It starts with you. It starts with me. It starts with every one of us. It starts with us. It starts with me. It starts with your father. It starts with my mother. It starts with our pastors and our church leaders and our religious men and women in different religious sects out there. It starts with our intellectuals actually looking at what life ordinarily should be, and the role of art and the role of fiction in shaping a society, in shaping our world. So give and take. The educational system would not grow until people down that path begin to be responsible enough, and all those saddled with the responsibilities to see to it that such sectors get to grow. Bearing in mind the help and the potential such get to bear and how such can be harnessed in the future. We're heading nowhere until we tell ourselves where the need for good governance, we do ourselves a great disfavor. Until we fix poverty, until we fix our many problems, which starts with the type of leaders we get to have. Because there's nothing technically wrong with Nigeria. It's not a barren land. It's just the type of leaders we've come to have over the years. That is why we are where we are. We don't have leaders who think. We don't have leaders who are very logically sound. And the few we have don't get to function very well because, what they say. They're threatened. And they are within a space that limits progress and limits growth and limits a whole lot of things that give life to a people. Nigeria can grow. Nigeria must grow. Nigeria should grow. But her leaders must champion the cause. And followers, so-called, must hold leaders accountable. If we don't do this, I'm afraid doom is upon us if we are not there already. Doom indeed is upon us. I pray that now in the near future, we get to come up with leaders that are very, very understanding. Leaders that know why they are there in office. Leaders that know that they were meant to serve the people, and to serve the people they must do. Leaders that put their nation first. I am Biringkpa Emeka. Thank you for allowing me a chance to speak to you today.